Daniel Cross had everything money could buy. At 34, he owned a tech company worth billions, a glass mansion on a hill, and 5 cars he never drove. But there was one thing Daniel Cross did not have. He did not have a single reason to smile. His house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after losing someone you loved more than life itself. 3 years ago, his wife Emma had died in a car accident, just 2 months after they had started talking about having a baby. After that day, something inside Daniel shut off, like a light switch flipped down and never flipped back up. He worked from morning until midnight. He skipped meals. He skipped sleep. His assistant often joked that Daniel ran on coffee and silence. Nobody had heard him laugh in 3 years. Not once. His doctor told him he needed rest. His sister told him he needed therapy. His business partner told him he needed a vacation. Daniel ignored all of them. Instead, he hired a new housekeeper, hoping a quieter house, somehow, would feel less empty. Her name was Sarah Bennett. She was 28, soft-spoken, and carried herself with quiet strength. She needed this job badly. She was a single mother, and her daughter, Lily, was only 3 years old. Lily's father had left before Lily was even born, and Sarah had been raising her alone ever since, working 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. When the agency told her about a live-in housekeeping position at a billionaire's mansion, with a small room for her and her daughter included, Sarah cried with relief. It felt like a miracle. On her first day, Sarah arrived nervous, holding Lily's small hand. The mansion was bigger than anything she had ever seen, with marble floors that echoed every footstep and ceilings so high they made her dizzy. A butler named Mr. Higgins greeted her at the door. "Mr. Cross does not like noise," Mr. Higgins warned gently. "He works in his study most of the day. Please keep the little one quiet if you can." Sarah nodded quickly. "Of course. I promise Lily is a good girl." But Lily was 3 years old, and 3-year-olds do not understand the word quiet the way adults do. That first week, Sarah tried everything. She kept Lily in their small room with coloring books and soft toys. She fed her quietly in the kitchen, far from Daniel's study. She tiptoed through hallways like a ghost, terrified that one wrong move would cost her this job, this chance, this small piece of stability she had fought so hard to find. But Lily had a soccer ball. It was old, scuffed, and her favorite thing in the whole world. Her grandfather, before he passed away, had given it to her. Lily carried it everywhere, even slept with it sometimes tucked under her small arm. She liked to wear an oversized jersey over her pajamas and pretend she was a big soccer star, as she proudly called herself. On the 5th day, while Sarah was busy folding laundry, Lily wandered. Her soccer ball bounced ahead of her, rolling down the long marble hallway, click-clacking softly with every bounce. Lily chased after it, giggling, her little feet slapping against the cold floor, her pigtails bouncing with every step. The ball rolled under a door that was slightly open, the door to Daniel Cross's study. Lily, without a single thought of fear, pushed the door open and walked right in. Daniel was sitting behind his enormous desk, staring blankly at a spreadsheet, his coffee gone cold beside him. He looked up, startled, expecting Mr. Higgins or maybe an email notification. Instead, he saw a small girl in a too-big jersey and dinosaur pajama pants standing in the middle of his office, holding a worn-out soccer ball against her chest like it was made of gold. "Ball," Lily said simply, pointing toward where it had rolled, now resting gently against Daniel's polished shoe. Daniel stared at the girl. He hadn't had a child in his house in years. He didn't know what to say. He simply looked down at the ball touching his shoe, then back up at her wide, curious eyes. "This your ball?" Daniel asked, his voice rough from disuse. Lily nodded enthusiastically, her pigtails bouncing. Daniel bent down, picked up the ball, and held it out. Lily grabbed it and, without warning, kicked it, right back at Daniel's leg, soft and playful, then burst into the biggest giggle Daniel had heard in years, from anyone anywhere. "Goal!" Lily shouted, throwing both arms in the air like she'd just won the World Cup. Daniel blinked. Something strange happened at his chest, something he hadn't felt in 3 long years. The corner of his mouth twitched. Just slightly. Just barely. That was the moment everything began to change. Though neither Daniel nor Sarah knew it yet. Sarah burst into the study moments later, breathless, her heart pounding with panic. "I am so sorry, Mr. Cross. She just ran off, I didn't." She stopped mid-sentence. Because what she saw made absolutely no sense to her. Daniel Cross, the billionaire who barely spoke 10 words a day to his own staff, was kneeling on his office floor in his expensive suit, gently rolling a scuffed soccer ball back toward her giggling daughter. "She's fine," Daniel said quietly, not looking up. "She scored on me." Sarah didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or apologize again. "Sir, I'll take her right away. She won't bother you again, I promise." "It's fine," Daniel repeated, and this time he looked at her. His eyes, usually cold and distant, looked almost soft, almost alive. "Really? It's fine." That evening, Daniel sat alone at his enormous dining table, eating dinner in silence, as he had every night for 3 years. But for the first time, the silence felt different, heavier somehow. He kept thinking about the girl's laugh, the way it had filled the room so easily, so naturally, like laughter was the simplest thing in the world. He thought about Emma, about the nursery they had planned to paint yellow, about the soccer ball he'd actually bought, secretly, hidden in his closet, 2 years before Emma died, hoping one day to teach their child to play, never once imagining whether that child would be a boy or a girl, only that he would love them endlessly either way. He had forgotten about that ball completely. Until tonight. The next morning, Daniel did something he hadn't done in years. He left his study before noon. He found Sarah in the laundry room, sorting linens, while Lily sat nearby stacking small plastic blocks into a wobbly tower, occasionally knocking it down on purpose, just to laugh. "Mrs. Bennet," Daniel said. Sarah straightened immediately, smoothing her apron. "Yes, Mr. Cross? Is something wrong?" "No," Daniel said. Then, after a pause that felt far too long for such simple words, he added, "Does she like soccer?" "Really like it?" Sarah blinked, confused by the question. She loves it, sir. It was her grandfather's ball. It's the only toy she really cares about. She tells everyone she's going to play in the World Cup someday." Daniel almost smiled at that. "There's a garden behind the East Wing. Big lawn. Nobody uses it." "Okay," Sarah said carefully, unsure where this was going. "I thought maybe," Daniel said, looking almost embarrassed, an expression Sarah never imagined she'd see on her employer's face. "She could play there. If she wants. It's just sitting empty." Sarah's eyes filled with unexpected tears. That's very kind of you, sir. Thank you." "It's nothing," Daniel said quickly, turning to leave before she could see how much it clearly wasn't nothing to him at all. Over the following days, something shifted in the house. Daniel started taking short breaks from work, walking past the East Garden by coincidence, watching Lily chase her ball across the grass with the unrestrained joy only small children seem to know how to feel. Sometimes Daniel would stop walking. Sometimes he would just stand there for a few minutes, hands in his pockets, watching. One afternoon, Lily kicked the ball too hard, sending it rolling straight toward Daniel's expensive leather shoes. "Mister, kick it," Lily shouted, waving both arms. Daniel looked around, like he was checking if anyone important was watching. Then, slowly, he set down his phone, loosened his tie, and kicked the ball back. Lily squealed with delight, missed catching it entirely, fell on the grass laughing, and shouted, "Again! Again!" And Daniel Cross, against every instinct of professionalism and distance he had built around himself for 3 painful years, knelt down on the grass in his $1,000 suit and played soccer with a 3-year-old girl. Mr. Higgins watched from a window, utterly speechless. He had worked for Daniel Cross for 6 years. He had never, not once, seen this version of him. That night, Sarah tucked Lily into bed and asked gently, "Did you have fun today, baby?" "Mr. played ball with me," Lily said sleepily, hugging her soccer ball tight. "Mr.'s funny." Sarah smiled softly in the dark room, though something in her chest ached too, something she didn't fully understand yet. She had seen the way Daniel looked at her daughter, like he was looking at something precious he thought he'd lost forever. What she didn't know was that Daniel had started looking at her, too. Differently. Carefully. Like someone slowly remembering how to feel something other than grief. Weeks passed, and the changes in Daniel Cross became impossible for the household staff to ignore. He came down for breakfast now, instead of having it sent up. He smiled, actually smiled, at small things, like Lily's mismatched socks or her attempts to say complicated words like spaghetti, which always came out as paschetti. But one rainy afternoon, everything became more complicated. Sarah was cleaning Daniel's study, something she rarely did since he usually locked it. But that day, he had left it open by mistake, called away suddenly for an emergency video call. While dusting his desk carefully, Sarah accidentally knocked a drawer slightly open. Inside, she saw a photograph. It was Daniel, younger, smiling, truly smiling, with his arm around a beautiful woman with kind eyes. Behind them was a half-painted nursery wall, yellow, with a small soccer ball sitting in the corner of the room, brand new, never used. Sarah's hand trembled as she gently closed the drawer. She hadn't meant to pry, but now she understood. Everything made sense. His sadness, his distance, the way his eyes had changed completely the day Lily brought that ball into his office. That evening, as Sarah served dinner quietly, Daniel noticed something different in her expression. "You look like something's bothering you," he said. Sarah hesitated, then decided honesty was better than pretending. "I saw a photo, sir. In your study drawer. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't get angry. He simply nodded slowly. "Emma," he said quietly. "My wife. She died 3 years ago. Car accident. She was 8 weeks pregnant." Sarah's hand flew to her chest. "Daniel, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "Nobody does," Daniel admitted. "I never talk about it. I built this whole empty life around not talking about it." He paused, looking down at his hands. "Until your daughter walked into my office with that stupid soccer ball." "She's not stupid," Sarah said softly, a small smile breaking through despite the tears in her eyes. "Neither is the ball." Daniel almost laughed. Almost. "No. She's not. She's the first thing that's made me feel human in 3 years." Sarah sat down slowly across from him, forgetting for a moment that she was the housekeeper and he was her billionaire employer. Right now, they were just two people who understood loss far too well. "I lost someone too," she admitted quietly. "Not the same way. Lily's father left before she was even born. Just packed up and disappeared. I raised her completely alone. Some days I didn't know how I'd afford diapers, let alone rent." Daniel looked at her with something like awe. "You never once seemed broken by it." "I had to be strong," Sarah said simply. "Lily needed me to be strong. There wasn't room for anything else." They sat in silence for a long moment, the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, but full of understanding neither had expected to find in each other. "Thank you," Daniel said finally, "for bringing her here, for letting me be near her. I didn't realize how much I needed that until it happened." "She adores you," Sarah said. "She talks about Mr. constantly. She even drew you a picture today. Insisted I bring it to you." She pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her apron pocket and slid it across the table. It was a crayon drawing of 2 stick figures kicking a ball, one with a triangle dress and pigtails made of yellow scribbles, labeled in Sarah's careful handwriting beneath Lily's attempt, "Mr. and me." Daniel stared at the drawing for a long moment, his throat tightening. Then, carefully, like it was something fragile and precious, he folded it gently and placed it in his jacket pocket, right over his heart. "I'm going to keep this forever," he said quietly. From that night forward, dinner became something different in that house. No longer a billionaire eating alone in silence, and a housekeeper eating quietly in the kitchen. Now, more often than not, Sarah, Daniel, and little Lily ate together at the smaller kitchen table, talking, laughing, sharing paschetti and stories. Slowly, without either of them planning it, 3 broken hearts had started fitting together like pieces of the same puzzle. But happiness, especially the fragile kind that grows in unexpected places, often attracts trouble. Daniel's sister, Victoria, ran the company's public relations division, and she was sharp, suspicious, and deeply protective of her brother's image and inheritance. When she visited the mansion and saw Daniel laughing in the garden, kicking a soccer ball with the housekeeper's daughter, while Sarah watched with obvious affection, alarm bells rang loudly in her head. What exactly is going on here? Victoria demanded later that evening, cornering Daniel in his study. Nothing's going on, Daniel said firmly. Lily is a sweet girl. Sarah is a wonderful mother. That's all this is. That's all this is? Victoria repeated skeptically. Daniel, you haven't smiled in 3 years. Now suddenly you're playing soccer in the garden with your maid's toddler? People will talk. Reporters will twist this into something ugly. Billionaire seduced by housekeeper. Or worse. Don't talk about Sarah that way, Daniel snapped, surprising even himself with a sharpness in his voice. Victoria's eyebrows rose slowly. Oh, so it's like that. It's not like anything, Daniel insisted, though his voice had lost some of its certainty. She works for me, that's it. But Victoria, ever the businesswoman, wasn't convinced, and she wasn't finished. The next day, she called Sarah into a private meeting without Daniel's knowledge. I think it would be best, Victoria said coolly, if you and your daughter moved to separate staff housing, away from the main mansion. There's a lovely cottage on the property's edge. More appropriate, given the circumstances. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Has Mr. Cross asked for this? Mr. Cross doesn't need to ask for everything, Victoria said smoothly. Sometimes those of us protecting his interests have to make decisions for him. Sarah, terrified of losing the only stable job she'd ever had, agreed quietly, packing her and Lily's few belongings that same afternoon while Daniel was away at a business meeting. When Daniel returned home that evening, the mansion felt unusually empty. No small footsteps running down the hallway. No soccer ball bouncing somewhere distant. No giggling drifting from the garden. Where's Sarah? Where's Lily? He asked Mr. Higgins urgently. Miss Bennet moved to the staff cottage this afternoon, sir, Mr. Higgins replied carefully. Miss Victoria arranged it. Daniel's jaw clenched with anger he hadn't felt in years, not even during his darkest grief. He marched straight to his sister's office. You had no right, Daniel said, his voice dangerously calm. No right at all. I was protecting you, Victoria argued. Protecting this family's reputation. Protecting me from what? Daniel interrupted sharply. From being happy? From feeling something again after 3 years of being completely empty? Victoria, that little girl walked into my office and made me feel human again. Sarah reminded me what kindness looks like. And you took them away without even asking me. Victoria fell silent, taken aback by the raw emotion in her brother's voice, emotion she hadn't witnessed since before Emma's death. I'm sorry, she finally admitted softly. I didn't realize. I didn't know it had become this important to you. Daniel didn't wait to respond. He immediately walked, then ran, across the dark property toward the small staff cottage at the edge of the estate. He knocked urgently. Sarah opened the door, surprised, Lily peeking sleepily from behind her legs in her dinosaur pajamas, soccer ball tucked under one arm even now. Daniel? What's wrong? Everything's wrong, Daniel said breathlessly. You shouldn't be out here. This isn't right. Victoria said. I don't care what Victoria said, Daniel interrupted gently. Sarah, please. Come back to the house. Both of you. This place feels wrong without you and Lily in it. It feels empty again, and I can't go back to empty. Not after everything. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Daniel, people will talk. Your sister's right about that part, at least. Let them talk, Daniel said firmly, stepping closer. I don't care what anyone says anymore. I care about what's true. And what's true is that you and your daughter brought me back to life. I won't pretend that doesn't matter, just to keep gossip quiet. Lily, still half asleep, suddenly perked up at the sound of Daniel's voice. Mister, she said happily, running forward and wrapping her small arms tightly around Daniel's leg. Daniel knelt down immediately, hugging the girl back, his eyes glistening with tears he no longer tried to hide. Hey, sweet pea, he whispered. I missed you today. Sarah watched the two of them together, her heart aching and healing all at once, and she knew, deep down, that whatever this was becoming, it was far too real and far too precious to let go of now. Sarah and Lily moved back into the main house that very night. Victoria, humbled and quietly remorseful, never brought up the staff cottage again. In time, she even grew fond of Lily herself, secretly slipping her small chocolate bars whenever she visited, and even buying her a tiny pair of soccer cleats decorated with glittery pink laces. Word, predictably, eventually leaked to the press. Billionaire Daniel Cross spotted playing soccer with housekeeper's daughter. One headline read, "Some articles were unkind, speculating cruelly about Sarah's intentions." But Daniel, for the first time in years, didn't hide from controversy. He gave a short, honest interview. "After my wife passed away, I forgot how to feel anything," he said simply. "A 3-year-old girl and her incredibly strong mother reminded me what it means to be alive again. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm grateful for it." The public's opinion shifted almost overnight. People didn't see scandal anymore. They saw a grieving man slowly healing, and a single mother whose quiet strength had touched a heart everyone thought was permanently closed. 6 months later, on a warm Saturday afternoon, the East Garden looked different. Flowers bloomed along the fence. A small wooden soccer goal, custom-built, stood proudly on the grass, a gift Daniel had commissioned the week after Sarah moved back into the main house. Lily, now nearly 4, kicked the ball confidently into the goal, throwing her arms triumphantly into the air. "Goal! Goal! Goal!" Daniel laughed, really laughed, the deep, warm kind of laughter that had been missing from his life for 3 long years, chasing after the girl and lifting her high into the air, spinning her around as Lily squealed with delight. Sarah watched from a garden bench, her heart impossibly full, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks, though these were happy tears, the kind she hadn't cried in years. Daniel walked over afterward, setting Lily down to chase the ball again, and sat beside Sarah on the bench, taking her hand gently in his. "I used to think happiness was something I lost forever the day Emma died," Daniel admitted quietly. "I thought grief was just permanent, something I'd carry alone for the rest of my life. And now?" Sarah asked softly. "Now," Daniel said, looking toward Lily chasing her soccer ball across the grass, laughing freely beneath the afternoon sun. "I think maybe happiness doesn't replace what we lost. Maybe it just finds new ways to exist alongside it. Emma will always be part of my heart. But you and Lily, you gave me room to feel something alongside that grief. Something real. Something good." Sarah squeezed his hand gently. "Lily gave you that, mostly. I just tried not to mess it up." Daniel laughed softly, shaking his head. "No. It was both of you. Together." They sat quietly for a while, watching Lily play, the late afternoon sun casting golden light across the garden, the same garden that had once sat empty and forgotten, much like Daniel's heart before that small soccer ball rolled into his office and changed absolutely everything. A year later, in that very garden, Daniel and Sarah were married in a small, quiet ceremony, surrounded by close friends, an emotional Victoria and little Lily, now wearing a tiny white flower girl dress over soccer cleats she had stubbornly refused to take off, proudly carrying a small basket of petals in one hand and holding her beloved soccer ball, now slightly more worn, tucked under the other arm, just in case. When the officiant asked if anyone present had something to add before the vows, Lily, completely unprompted, raised her hand high and shouted, "Goal!" The entire garden burst into laughter, including Daniel, who laughed so hard he had tears streaming down his face, happiness pouring out of him freely, easily, the way it should have all along. Because sometimes the people who heal our deepest wounds aren't doctors or therapists or distant strangers. Sometimes they're the smallest, most unexpected people imaginable, a tired single mother fighting quietly for her daughter's future, and a tiny girl who simply wanted someone to play ball with her. And sometimes, all it takes to remind a broken billionaire how to laugh again is one small, scuffed-up soccer ball, rolling gently beneath the right door, at exactly the right moment.